So when I talk about neurodivergence, just to give a definition of it as set a baseline, this is slide 2. Um, Neurodivergence it's an umbrella term for cognitive differences. So things like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and more. Those differences affect how people think, process information, and work. It's actually more common than people think, and I think we've seen a prevalence grow even more after COVID. About 1 in 5 people are neurodivergent. So in tech and design, that diversity of thought can be a huge asset, help drive innovation, empathy, and creativity. Next slide. So just to give some quick high-level stats about the prevalence of it, about 1 in 5 adults in the US are neurodivergent. The three big ones are dyslexia, so that's 20% of the population. ADHD is a little over 4% of adults. And then autism spectrum disorder is a little over 2%. Those three combined are about 70% of all neurodevelopmental diagnoses. But globally, about 15 to 20% are actually considered neurodivergent. But on the bright side, teams that do have neurodivergent team members can actually be up to 30% more productive. And yet, up to 85% of adults with autism in particular are unemployed. And unemployment for neurodivergent adults is 3 times higher than other disabled groups and 8% higher than non-disabled peers. So, how can something that we can see as so valuable also be unsupported in most work environments? So, to get uh, a little bit about me before we jump into how we can support this. Who dis? Well, I'm Kristen. As I said, I'm a senior product designer. I've got a decade of experience, like I said, in both brand and product design. This is also slide 4. Sorry. I've worked in several different industries, such as music and entertainment, travel and hospitality, marketing technology, e-commerce. I currently work in the accounting practice management space. I oversee our client collaboration experience at a Charlotte-based startup. I never thought I would be working in the accounting practice management space, but here I am. And it's actually a lot of fun. It's a very different industry from anything I've worked in before. I live outside of Philadelphia with my rescue Papillon. Her name is Pebbles, I believe. There's a little picture of her on there. And I am neurodivergent. Slide 5. So I've been clinically diagnosed with combined type ADHD and dyscalculia, which is kind of like the numbers-based version of dyslexia. I struggle with things like mental math, time perception, and direction. I actually even have a little L and an R tattooed on my hands just to help me tell directions. Um, so like I said, 2 years ago, I was officially diagnosed, but before that, I spent a lot of my early career struggling, wondering why I was constantly like clashing with leadership, frustrated that others didn't see what I could like clearly see. And I worked late. A lot of time I worked late in an office, not because I was behind, but because it was finally quiet and there were not a lot of people bothering me. Um, Despite all that, I somehow managed to like work my way up in my career. I've been a web designer to an art director to senior product designer. I've mentored and managed different groups of designers. So somehow I've done it. I think it's my awkward charm because I am not like the confident speaker that a lot of my colleagues are. You can see that, like, if you spend enough time with me, I will forget words mid-sentence. Um, but having that diagnosis really helped me understand that, like, I wasn't broken. There wasn't something wrong with me. I just didn't really know my brain was wired differently. So once I kind of learned a lot of the things that I thought were like weird nuances of just me being me, I could learn to lean into those strengths. So this is slide 6, which we're going to be on for like 2 seconds. What are those strengths? Let's talk about the good of people that are neurodivergent. And I want to say that like my experience is not the experience of all neurodivergent people. Our experiences may be different. So this is just a general overview of some of the strengths that we generally tend to have. And hopefully I can shed some light on how I've seen these work in UX and product design. So slide 7, um, this you're losing the cool animations I had on this anyway, so that's sad. So the first is hyperfocus. We can get really deeply immersed in systems level work. We really like getting into a flow state, almost to an obsessive amount on some things. The thing to be careful of with that is that you don't hyper focus on the wrong thing. But if you get really deeply immersed in a project, a task leading to efficiency, creativity, and you can become a master of that subject matter, that's really valuable. So for example, I really liked getting into the nuances of design systems, and now I have overseen design systems at 2 different companies. Um, so that's one strength. The second one is creativity and innovation. So we approach problems in different, unusual, and out of the box ways that can help break through design ruts that teams tend to get stuck in. Um, Innovation itself is a hugely marketable skill right now, especially in a sea of products that are all vying to solve the same problem. If you think about like the AI boom right now, how can we contribute to new and innovative ways? So the third is detailed processing. We're super, super good at noticing things that other people miss. And it's very like eagle-eyed too. So whether it's a pixel misalignment, some copy inconsistencies, we can contribute that to um, like helping out with QA, being able to help with documentation, um, helping to improve the quality of interaction design so that that ability to be very detail oriented, it's helpful to ensure that things are consistent across the board. We are on slide, yes, thank you. Um, all right, the next one is authenticity. So, like I said, I think my awkward charm has made me successful. Um, but I didn't know this was kind of a strength until I kind of started to learn a little bit more about neurodivergence. Um, but when you can communicate, and I think this goes for everybody, but when you can communicate and express yourselves authentically, you're not expending as much energy masking. And we'll get to what masking is in a couple of slides. You have less pressure to conform. It can create a sense of belonging, and that overall reduces your stress. So having an honest perspective can foster trust not only with your colleagues, but your users as well. Um, and alongside of this, neurodivergent people tend to have a very strong sense of social justice and fairness. So that goes a long way in being able to push for very user-centric and inclusive design. Um, all right, slide 8, pattern recognition. This is probably the one that I have seen the most positive outcome in my own work is being able to connect dots quickly, often spotting systemic issues and emerging patterns before others do, especially between different details that may seem unrelated to anybody else. Um, so this helps you to be able to connect disparate user behaviors, again, interface inconsistencies, and even systemic design issues. Um, you're often the first to recognize potential issues that could occur down the line and be able to design to address those. So if you've ever like thought I don't think we should do that. And for these reasons, and then it's happened, and then down the line, the thing that you said was going to happen has happened, and the way that you wanted to do it is the thing that should have been done. You can relate deeply to that. Um, so empathy. Empathy is huge in UX. We always see this as like one of the things that helps you become a great UX designer because you can figuratively and almost literally put yourself in your user's shoes without much effort at all. And you have a deep understanding of those users' pain points, especially for marginalized and underserved populations. You deeply care about the user experience from all facets, emotional, behavioral. Again, when you have that empathy, you have a better sense of what inclusivity you want to include in your designs. Systemic thinking. This is kind of relates back to pattern recognition, but we're able to map dependencies across product, content, development workflows. It's extremely valuable in things like service design, information architecture, design systems, and system level product strategy. So, for example, we have a team at work that is solely dedicated to what's called like the foundation to be able to support all the other teams to ensure that the work that we're doing is consistent across the entire experience, not just this one platform, but how does it also operate in our marketing, in our customer success? So that type of thinking really helps in those sorts of teams. And then lastly, diligence and persistence. We're very, very like persistent when we really believe in something. Um, we're especially valuable in like long-term projects or things that are like UX work that's very like regulation heavy, because we don't want to give up unless it's not engaging for us. That's a challenge. Um, all right. The next slide, slide 9. So this is just here for fun. This is my team sends me this all the time simply because I will be like, I don't know if we should do that. And then I say what we should do. And they're like, a week later, they're like, yeah, what you said was good. It's just funny. Anyway, this is just a little joke about if you've ever felt like the things that you're saying, you're like, why is no one else seeing what I'm seeing? It's so obvious that you feel this. Um, all right, slide 10. But with those challenges and those strengths, there are challenges, especially in environments that were built for neurotypical brains. So I want you to also know that this is like an institutional problem, especially in the US. Corporations are very much built and structured around the neurotypical brain. Um, so we can't really change that paradigm, but how can we educate people to work towards a paradigm that supports both neurodivergent and neurotypical brains? And then what are the things that we can do ourselves and within our teams and as managers of people who are neurodivergent to build success for them? So first, let's go through some of the things that are potential challenges for people. So slide 11. So sensory sensitivities, these are like the things that cause you sensory overload. Open offices, loud sounds, bright lights. You have a intense reaction. You can be triggered by these things. Um, I know that I am triggered by like lots of people and noise. So for me, it is a huge help to work remotely. And I have not been in an office since 2019, so COVID. And I don't know if I could go back. But so for example, if you're at a in-person workshop or you're doing an in-person sprint or an in-person user interview, you may become more overwhelmed or easily distracted. So could you participate better from Zoom or something like that? Um, those are kind of the things that I want to talk about in terms of like, okay, if you can't do that, what if you could do this? Fast-paced collaboration. So real-time feedback and rapid-fire critiques are often hard to process. You want to have that time to be able to take in the information and process it. If you have to give responses quickly, that can cause anxiety and feel like you are giving a less thoughtful decision. I know I deal with that a lot. Um, and especially when I go into meetings and I'm not prepared, I don't feel that I can contribute as well because I'm like, I didn't know what we were going to talk about. And I can't contribute at the moment. Later, I will probably be like, all right, here's my novel of some questions I now have. But um, it's difficult in if you don't have like knowledge ahead of time. So one of the things that I do is instead of doing like in-person design reviews, I often will record a Loom walkthrough of what I plan to present. Um, and add notes and share that out so that people are aware and can have time to look at it so that when we are doing a review, we're all kind of on the same page and I don't feel like blindsided by their questions and they don't feel blindsided by like, here's a whole new product we have to build. Time blindness. So this is the struggle to perceive and estimate time accurately. This can include things like missing meetings or appointments, missing deadlines, difficulty sticking to routines and schedules, and then overcommitting or underestimating how long it will take you to do things. I struggle with this a lot, especially with estimating how long it may take me to do something. Um, so I employ a lot of reminders, and I'll get to some of like the things that are in my toolkit in some of the next slides. But last one is executive dysfunction. You hear this a lot with ADHD. This is the disruption in the ability to effectively manage your cognitive functions. So planning, organizing, task initiation, emotional regulation. So planning and organizing is like setting goals, breaking down tasks, managing your time. Task initiation and even completion, we struggle to even start or finish things, especially if it's not immediately engaging. Um, Emotional regulation is a disproportionate or reactive impulse to a situation. Um, Focus and attention, this is like the thing that everybody like thinks of when they think of ADHD, like, oh, you're easily distracted. Um, yes, sometimes, but especially on things that are not highly engaging to us. Um, and then lastly, I think that's the last one. Okay, cool. So how do we, oh no, next slide. I forgot I had a slide. So slide 12, burnout. We burn out faster, harder, and longer. Um, again, it's a systemic issue. It's a institutional issue. I'm not saying that neurotypical people don't burn out, but managers and companies can think of neurodivergent people as canaries in the coal mine when it comes to burnout. If we're burnout, that means people are not far behind us. So that's an indicator for them to try to make some changes. Um, Masking, so I mentioned masking earlier, that's hiding our traits that takes a toll on you. So, like, oh, like if I have a particular stim, I have to hide it, or I have to like try to pretend like I don't want to like move around in my seat as much. If you're trying to be someone you're not, that is just draining of your energy. It can erode trust and the authenticity that we talked about earlier, and even your well-being. You're pretending to be someone you're not. Um, Ambiguity. So vague goals and open-ended tasks can feel paralyzing, again, because you don't want to start it. Um, so it's hard to like feel alignment because you don't know what you want to know without defined criteria. So in particular within UX, if your like product manager is just like, oh, we need to do some discovery on like why why users like don't look at this screen. I'd be like, well, what criteria are you looking for? Like, what do you want to know about why they're not looking at that screen? It can be very paralyzing. So it's helpful to ask clarifying questions in a lot of cases. Then lastly, task switching. So you have difficulty managing multiple projects at once. Um, not, I know the concept of multitasking exists, but not people cannot multitask at all. But task switching for us is difficult. So if you are on multiple teams or multiple projects, it's hard for you to juggle these things. Um, so how do we navigate these things? So slide 13. I'm going to talk about some of the things overall and then things that I do in particular that have helped me. And then if we have time, I think we have time for discussion. We can also talk about some other things there. Okay, so slide 14. I put animation in it, so just click along. Um, Leverage tools like task managers, timers, reminders to help support your executive function. Designate low stimulation spaces. Break down your work into smaller, manageable tasks. Set clear expectations by confirming tasks and goals in writing. And practice setting boundaries early to prevent burnout and then be ready to have your coping skills of what you know will help to combat those symptoms as soon as you see them. And then find your allies and build your network. So, some of the things that I do in particular that have helped me, um, I'm just going to go through them. They're not, unfortunately, not on the slide, but if you want to take notes. So for things like sensory overload, even though I work from home, I still wear noise canceling headphones, especially over the ear kinds, because it just helps me like cocoon myself in my own little space. And it helps me feel like I can focus on like the thing that I need to do. Um, for time blindness, I use what is called, I call it a music playlist timer. This has probably been the single number one thing that has helped me the the most out of kind of all the different tactics I've tried over the past 2 years. But what you do is you take your favorite song and however long that song is, you just add it again and again and again to the playlist to add up to the amount of time you want your timer for. And then the last song is just something really out of pocket that would jar you out of a flow state, um, or remind you that the time is up. Um, so, for example, if your favorite song is 5 minutes long, and the next screen I'll show you like this is a screenshot of mine. If I have a 15-minute timer, I just repeat it 3 times, and then the last song is something different. Um, what else do I do? For time blindness, there is an app called Meeting Bar, and you can connect it to your calendar. And whenever a meeting is time to start, it gives an entire full screen overlay that tells you you have a meeting and the button to like join it. That has been really helpful too, because if I'm not paying attention to that or I'm really concentrated on something else, doesn't matter what's on your screen, it's going to take precedence and pop up. Um, some other things that I like to do are we do this concept of called user story mapping. It's helpful for our team as a practice in whole, but it's also helpful for me. Whoops, moved my own slide on myself. It's helpful for me because what you do is you're able to take the work that your team is doing, um, and break it down into small tasks. Those end up being your user stories. Um, But being able to do that gives you a visual look of all the work that you need to do across the entire user journey of whatever the bucket of work is. That's helpful for me. That's helpful for the team to understand the scope of the work. And then I know kind of where to start working and have defined criteria of what needs to be done. So that is not only beneficial for me, it's beneficial for our whole team and leadership. Someone asked if we're supposed to be seeing slides. No, there has been a person that's been bombing. So we're 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 changing it up a little bit. Um, what else do I do? I also create my own milestones. So a lot of environments are not like deadline driven. It's not like you have like, all right, we have to have this released by this date. I have worked in very deadline driven environments, and those are helpful for me. But when you work in a much more loose environment where like the goal is like, yeah, this needs to be done by end of Q4, you're like, okay. So our team defines kind of loose milestones within the work that we're doing so that I know when I need to be committed to doing my part. So if we're in a 2 week sprint and we plan on doing this bucket of work in sprint 12, I know that I need to try to be done my part usually 2 sprints ahead. So we'll figure out when sprint 12 is supposed to be, and then I work backwards from there. So that helps me know that I have like, okay, this is what you need to work on. This is how you can prioritize. Um, Another thing that I do, especially with boundaries, and again, I still struggle with boundaries a lot, but that's why it's really important to set them as early as possible because some people, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. I use the built-in downtime settings. If you have a Mac computer, I set it to like close every app. Like it just like says you've reached your time limit today on everything around like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I'm too lazy to sit there and click all the ignore buttons. It's easier for me to just close my laptop lid. So I essentially cut my own self off from working. Um, and that's been really helpful. If you set that on a Mac, it's in the settings, and then let me see if I can just do it real quickly. It's in the settings under, ooh, where is it? Screen time, and then there's downtime under limit usage. Um, what else do I do? Okay, so I also do design grooming meetings or design, I don't like calling them reviews, but it's essentially a meeting that I run as a part of our 2 week sprint to share like work in progress or new discovery or new findings. But having that weekly cadence, even if I don't have something like completely done, keeps myself accountable to my team and to myself. Because if I don't have that, I am not going to do it. So, um, I really like having that, and the team really likes that too, as well, because they get to seem and feel because they are a part of the solution as it's being built, rather than like me tossing a design over to dev. Um, we are working much more in tandem. So a lot of these things have adjacent benefits for your team and how you operate as well. Um, Task adjacency. This is another thing that I do. If I like don't like doing something, I attach it to something that is related and that I can tolerate. So, for example, every week I have to provide a Loom video of like, here's the accomplishments of our
Well,
team like this week. I hate
very
doing it.
nice.
I hate recording it. So I will do it right after I watch like looms that I have to watch. I'm like, okay, I can tolerate watching looms, but recording a loom, I hate because I hate hearing my voice. Apologies to all of you. Um, so if you can like attach those things, it's also like similar when you're trying to build habits. I think they call it like habit stacking. If you're trying to like learn a new habit, do it with something you already do, and you're more likely to stick with it. Um, Another thing is time estimation. This helps people who have time blindness. So try to time like yourself on a task. So if you say like, okay, I have the next hour, I'm going to do this thing. See how far you get versus how far you thought you would get. And if you keep practicing this, it helps you gauge how well your estimation skills are, and you can start to get better over time with how long it actually takes you to do certain types of work. Um, and then lastly, focus time on your calendar. This is not just for neurodivergence, this is for kind of everybody. Um, when I didn't have focus time on my calendar, I could barely get my work done because people would just be asking me questions, coming to me. Part of that was because I was also stepping in into other roles at the time, but I could like not actually sit down and get like deep thought work done, which you need because you need that extended time to actually get into that flow. Um, so focus time on the calendar. And pro tip, people will still schedule over it if they see like it's a 4 hour chunk. So, because they're like, oh, that's got to be focus time. So break it down into more like believable windows, like an hour or what. So people are less likely to schedule over that. I know it's a little like shady, but otherwise people will just schedule right over those larger windows. Um, the next slide is just an example. Like this is my timer. So I have a song 3 times, and then the other song, the last song is just like totally different. That just jars me out of that. So to wrap up, I will leave you with this. Your differences are your superpowers. Lean into what makes you unique. It'll make you a better designer, and it'll help you create better designs for everyone. Um, Even in times, this is the next slide, we're on slide 17. So even in times when inclusion is being questioned, like we have a responsibility as designers and as humans to reflect the full range of human experience in our work. So on that note, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I think we have time for questions, right? Cool.
Yes, definitely. We have about 25 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay. Um, Should I start if there are questions above or people want to re-put them in here? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, I'll just start with Jacqueline because hers was the first one I saw. Jacqueline asks, can you share how you've navigated situations where leadership or supervisors weren't fully understanding or supportive of your working style or needs? Yes, so this was um, the situation a lot in my earlier in my career. I would butt heads a lot with leadership, especially when it came to like what we should do for some, like how to solve a problem. Um, the way that I ended up navigating it is all the other aspects is going to be a terrible answer. All the other aspects of my job, I did really well. I was very respected with my teammates. I was respected with my direct supervisor. Um, and when I had those allies, like they went to bat for me when it came when like someone was like, well, what is she doing or what is she saying? Um, Having those allies really, really helps in that time. So don't, I know people are often like, I don't want to share that I have that diagnosis. You don't have to do that. I actually did it at my current job. Like my team knows that I have ADHD and they help to work around that with me. Um, but when it comes to leadership and supervisors, again, it's hard because if they have a certain set way that they want to work. Um, the biggest thing I can say is find the allies, find your coworkers, um, find a manager that really understands you and can help build accommodations that work around your strengths. A good manager will lean into your strengths. They won't exploit your weaknesses. All right. Let's see. There's a hand raised. Blake, is that, I hope I said that right, Blake?
Hi. For one, I wanted to say everything that you said was like extremely insightful, and um, but I actually had a question about the apprenticeship that's with you guys' program, and I wanted to know like how that process is on the recruiters end and what you guys are looking for people to be in that role, and like how many people do you guys end up usually going for whenever you guys choose people to join the apprenticeship?
Yeah, I can answer that. So we choose two folks that we sponsor for the 7-month apprenticeship. And we've currently already chosen one candidate, and we're looking to fill one more slot. I can't give you the details of the recruitment process, but it is very competitive, and we do have hundreds of applicants. So I would just say to put, like any job application, put your best foot forward, and, we'll take that into consideration.
Thank you. Um, let's see. I'm trying to make sure there aren't any questions that I have missed before I go to the next one. All right, how do you stay motivated when everything else fails to motivate you and you lack motivation for a project? Ooh, that is a good one. Let's see. So, in the context of work, I really, how to word this? I really see part of a successful workplace as the people that you work with and the team that you work with. Um, I I don't want to let my team down. So for me, if I'm like this is a like accounting practice management, again, not like you're not working for something like Figma or Notion or something like a cool product. Um, so yeah, it's probably hard to be motivated by that, but my motivation comes from working with a really good team, and being able to make us successful, make a successful product, see, we actually get a lot of FaceTime with our users, see the excitement when we show them a prototype, show how excited they get and how much they want to be a part of the process of creating a product with us. Um, those are like high motivators for me. Other things are finding things that are not maybe a part of your like day to day that you like doing, and sprinkle those into the work that you're doing. So while I oversee our design system at work, um, often I don't actually have the time to contribute to it. So I will take like 15, 20 minutes in between doing other work and like work on some documentation. I love writing out design documentation. Or I'll do 15 minutes of like building a Figma component. These are things that I like to do, and doing that kind of reinvigorates like the motivation that I need to do the work that I actually need to do. So, um, perseverance is a good one. Yeah, it's motivation is very hard for me. If anyone has actual advice on that, on like the personal side of things, I'm open to hearing your suggestions there. I think I've got it down pat for work, but um, yeah, I'm just reading some of the comments here too. Interrupting. I do that too, and it's just because I'm so excited. So I think that also helps when like my friends and my teammates know that I'm not doing it to be rude. I am just excited about what we're talking about. Um, yeah, for sure. I would love to connect. They're my what do you call these things? Emails and like socials and stuff are on that last page of the or that last slide. If you don't have them, let me know. Do you know any groups that I can join for neurodivergence in tech? Unfortunately, I don't. Um, oh, there's the question. Any advice for interrupters? Uh, that I am one, as I said. Um, Again, I think it's just making sure that you ensure to the, I guess, the group that you're speaking with, it's not coming from a place of malice. It's not coming because you don't want to listen to what they have to say. It's coming from a place of you're excited about it and you want to share your experience. Um, I think I always apologize. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I just was really excited about what you had to say and interested in this topic. So for me, it's just clarifying that I'm not trying to be rude or talk over them, or I just want to contribute to that conversation. How do you deal with imposter syndrome as neurodivergent? Oh, good question. Yeah, this is like, I don't know if anyone else is like this, but you kind of like fluctuate between like I am an idiot. How did I trick these people into getting this role? And to like, why are all these other people not understanding what I have to say? You like vacillate between the two. Um, I, to me, I just have to keep reminding myself, like, no, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I am doing. I am a huge learner and I'm very curious. So I am always trying to learn and educate myself. And the more that I know, the more that I can combat that imposter syndrome of like, no, I don't belong here. Um, well, yeah, you do because you are a subject matter expertise. Can you talk about these things? Yeah. Um, and don't let people who like are questioning your presence or your place because they don't really have the knowledge that you have. That's one of the struggles with being like a subject matter expertise. It's like you're brought in for it, and then people are like, well, no, like we know better anyway. It's like, well, okay, well, what was I doing here? So being sure that like you leverage that knowledge that you have. Um, All right. Reposting question. I often find perfection over progress being one of the biggest. Yeah, yeah. Any tips on how to work through scenarios like this, especially when deadlines are at stake? All right, let me just read through some of the notes here to make sure there's not any additional questions. Okay. Yeah, I am a perfectionist as well. And I've been reminded of this exact thing. A lot over my career of like your level of of like what you think is is what everybody else thinks is awesome. So I'm like, okay, I gotta try to remember like if I need to put myself in the shoes of my users, right? Do they have this same level of like perfectionism as me? In this particular industry that I am in right now, no. What I think is perfection is probably light years ahead of what these users expect. They're working in software that was probably built before I was alive. And that's saying something with how old I am. Um, so that's one thing is like try to think about like what are you really trying to accomplish with this piece of work? Is it a POC? Like if it's just a proof of concept, it doesn't have to be like amazing. Same thing, like another example is with a design system. If you don't have really like a huge design system, you don't have to sit there and go, oh my God, we need to like build out a whole custom website and like set up a storybook. Like just start with the small components that you have and document them. You don't have to go 0 to 100. Like there are different levels of contributions that you can make. So I like to kind of help do that too with like, all right, do I need like my good enough, my best? Like I spent forever on this and like gauge that against the goal for the team and the goal for the business. When deadlines are at stake, that's even like harder. But again, I'm a very deadline driven person. So if there is a deadline, I tend to like work against that. Like that's more of the motivator for me. Um, let's see. The timer is also helpful. Again, I set the timer. So I know that if like I start to sense that I'm going down a rabbit hole of a thing, I will set a timer and be like, all right, if you're still working on this thing after this 15 minutes, you need to stop. So a good example of this is the other week, I needed to design like a whole screen and I got stuck going down a rabbit hole of making a custom icon. And I was like, you don't need to do that. You just pick one that you already have and use that. Um, so that I try to like redirect myself that way as well. Okay. Okay, sorry. Reading question. Okay. Sorry, reading quite. With working from home, how do you manage your time with your projects and not end up doing other things or lose focus? So I actually work better from home because when I was in an office, people were constantly coming up to me to ask me questions, and that would break my focus. Um, I I actually don't end up doing other things throughout the day. Like I try to keep my working hours as close to 9 to 5 as possible. That doesn't mean that I like go off and like I can't go to an appointment or whatever. I do have that flexibility there. Um, but for me, like actually having the time to sit and work, I like versus an office where people were bothering me. I also, if I feel like I'm like, I can't get anything done, I have the freedom to step away and be like, all right, I'm going to go take a walk or I'm going to go outside, take my dog out, run an errand, and then come back to this. Another thing I've like tried to realize as I like work is when I actually have like a natural flow state. And mine tends to be between 4 and 6. So even though I try to keep as close from 9 to 5 as possible, I usually shift later in the day because I know I've got that like time of the day where I'm like, it's really easy for me to get a lot of work done. So if you've got that flexibility in your day, try to use it. I Again, I try to keep to a schedule to keep everything else in my life in order, but it tends to shift around and then I try to just tell myself that's okay. It's not because you're lazy, it's literally your brain working differently. Um, are you leveraging AI to help make your job easier, especially for tasks that are challenging? That is a really good question. I don't know if I'm the best person to answer questions on AI because I have a slight aversion to it in general, but I do use it in moderation. I use it to help with copywriting because I don't like doing that. And we don't have like content designers here. I will write the copy out first, ask it to like make it more succinct or concise or fit this type of tone. So I use it a lot with copy, like writing interface copy. I use it a lot to um, consolidate discovery notes and pick out like key themes. So a lot of stuff around user research, I still go through because sometimes it misses stuff or it will add random stuff. Um, Things that are super repetitive, I haven't quite found a way to do that. I did have Claude write me a Figma plugin to like change background colors in Figma when I'm like trying to figure out color palettes. I wrote a plugin so when I change the color palette, like the background, it changes the hex code that's on it, and vice versa. If I update the hex code, it updates that because I was tired of just using the eyedropper back and forth. So that's been something I've been exploring because I'm not an engineer, but I find I love using plugins in Figma to help speed up other things. that I'm doing. So that's kind of been one of the things I've been exploring. I will also use it to like ideate um, on specific ideas. Like when I'm first starting something, I'll describe the problem and see kind of what comes out of it. It's not anything that I can just like hand to a developer and be like, this is what we're going to build. But pieces of it are nice, especially if there's a more complex interaction design that Figma prototyping or another um, design tool can't handle. I will use that to describe that interaction and use that output to show engineers like this is what I want it to do because I'm not going to waste my time trying to figure it in Figma. So those things that I've used for that. Um, okay, as someone who's new, is there a way to combat my, okay, I should read out loud. As someone who was new to UX when I got into my career, I had to learn a lot on my own as a junior. My boss tends to gaslight me and I don't feel confident in my work. Is there a way to combat that? Listening to this, I feel like I might have a lot of these tendencies you spoke about. This adds to my lack of motivation. Okay, so I am also an individual that was pretty much self-taught. I never said what my educational background is, but my educational background is music business. So I I did not like have educational background in design. I had a minor in visual communication, but that was about it. Everything that I have learned has been on the job or teaching myself. Um, so I don't know if it's they're gaslighting you because you don't have because you are self-taught or it's hard to see here, but one, not a great manager if they're gaslighting you from the way you learned. But I would speak with your boss manager, first of all, if to get a little bit more into the like nuances of why they are gaslighting you. Like, don't say that. Just approach them as if, like, what are the things that I can learn or improve on? Like, what are these specific areas? Again, goes back to like ambiguity. If you don't know what they're trying to tell you, you need to get more specific criteria. So I've found that working with supervisors that you tend to butt heads with, if you make them feel like they're the ones that came up with the idea or they're the ones that are driving that decision, that tends to help with some of that tension. So I would approach them and see, what is it that you can help me learn, or what is it that you would like me to improve on or work on. Work with them to try to come up with a plan of the things or the skills that they would like you to learn or work on. Ask them like, okay, do you have resources that you would like me to look at? Like, what did you learn from? Trying to build that relationship. I know it like is playing the game, which is hard for us. But I I find it's better to kill with kindness. Um, Question, do you have any tips on how to strengthen my application as a junior UX designer? So I guess like application in general, um, or like portfolio, or let's see, hold on. Um, Again, for me, the biggest thing that I saw when I was last in the job market, was the feedback that I got the most positive out of everyone that I spoke to, interviewed with, was we really liked your portfolio because I got a really good idea of your personality. Um, I leaned into that. I made my portfolio like this is the first portfolio I've had of my entire career that I actually like and feels like it represents me. So I leaned into that versus trying to just follow like a set script and make my case studies be like super professional written. There's like jokes in my case studies. There's like little Easter eggs throughout my portfolio. I leaned into that personality. And I think that helped make me stand out, not just from my work, but a big part of a hiring process is, will you jive with the company culture? Will you jive with this team? If they can get a sense of like your personality, and who you are, that's like a big help for them because usually culture fits are like not towards the end if the hiring man or the recruiter like doesn't pick up on it first. Um, that's been like the biggest piece of advice that I've given for anybody that's asked kind of about like how do I strengthen my portfolio or my application. Um, yeah. Do you have to have, oh, okay, that's not for me. Um, so someone asked me, and I'll answer this openly, is how do you know that we needed to like get checked out? So my personal experience was during COVID, I started to work from home and I was working from home really well. And then over time, I started to realize that my concentration was like crapola. It just like got shot for some reason. My focus kept going down. I was really distracted. Um, and that coupled with like some other non-related medical issues prompted me to go to my primary physician. And she actually was like, all right, I think we're going to get you like we need you need to get a neurological or